The summons, the defiant hung in the void music like a scar across starlight. Her hull was dark iron, weathered by 3 centuries of service, marked with the kind of wear that spoke not of neglect but of survival. She was small by modern standards, a reconnaissance frigate from an era when humanity still built ships to last forever. Her engines hummed with a rhythm older than most of the crew, steady and unbreakable. Captain Alina Marsh stood on the bridge, her reflection ghosting across the observation window. She was 42, with silver threading through her black hair, and eyes that had seen too many empty sectors of space. Her uniform was crisp regulation, but her posture carried something beyond military bearing. It was the stance of someone who had learned patience from the stars themselves. The communication alert cut through the bridge silence like a blade. Not a hail, not a request, an intrusion. The main display erupted with alien symbols, harsh angular glyphs that writhed across the screen before the translation matrix caught up. First Officer James' chin straightened in his seat, his hand instinctively moving toward the weapons console before stopping himself. There were no weapons that could answer what was coming. The message assembled itself in cold, clinical human standard. Attention. Species designation Tan. You are summoned to the Zarkith assembly point. Sector Helix 9 within 10 solar cycles. This is not negotiation. This is compliance protocol. Failure to attend will result in systematic eradication of all Terran colony stations and vessels. No exceptions, no mercy, no second warning. Chin exhaled slowly. Captain, they're not even pretending to be diplomatic. Marsh said nothing. She was reading the metadata, the hidden layers beneath the message. Her eyes narrowed. Aria, full analysis. I want to know everything this message brought. With it, the ship's quantum AI manifested as a soft blue presence in the holographic field beside the captain's chair. Aria had no face, no form, just a gentle luminescence that pulsed with thought. When she spoke, her voice carried the warmth of someone who had been family for generations. Captain, the message contains 17 embedded protocols. Most are standard tracking and verification signatures. However, 3 are execution codes. Bridge went silent. Chin turned fully toward the hologram. Execution codes for what? For us, said Chief Engineer Dr. Sarah Akinquo from her station near the rear of the bridge. She was already running counter-analysis, her fingers dancing across haptic controls. These aren't just threats, they're preloaded kill orders tied to colony infrastructure systems. If we don't respond, these codes activate and start shutting down life support, power grids, defensive arrays across human space. Marsh felt the weight settle in her chest. How many colonies are tagged? All of them, Aria replied quietly. Every human settlement within 300 light years, approximately 42 million people. Chin stood up. That's not war, that's extermination. Marsh walked slowly to the center of the bridge, her boots making soft sounds against the deck plating. She looked up at the message still burning on the screen. Aria, can you neutralize the execution codes? I can isolate and quarantine them. Captain, but if the Zark don't receive confirmation of our arrival, they'll simply send new codes. The only way to truly stop this is to attend their assembly. Convenient, Chin muttered. They've made sure we have no choice. Marsh turned to face her crew. There We're only 12 people on this bridge only. 83 souls on the entire ship, the Defiant, had been conducting a routine survey. Mission in the outer territories when the message arrived. The rest of humanity's fleet was scattered, weeks away at minimum burn, responding to colony emergencies and patrol routes. Across an ever-expanding frontier, Earth. Command had been contacted, but even at quantum relay speeds, orders wouldn't arrive in time. They were alone, one ancient frigate against whatever the Zarkith had waiting. How far to the assembly point? Marsh asked. Akona checked her navigation charts. Helix 9 is 14 days at maximum sustainable speed. We'd arrive with 6 cycles to spare. What do we know about the Zark? Chin asked. Arya's glow shifted, pulling up archival data. The Zarkith Empire spans 47 star systems. They are expansionist, hierarchical, and operate under a philosophy they call directive supremacy. They believe the galaxy should be ordered according to capability and power. Species that cannot defend themselves are considered resources, not equals. They've been quiet for the past 20 years, Yano added. Ever since the Treaty of Vega Rim established neutral zones, this summons breaks that treaty completely. Marsh nodded slowly. They're not interested in treaties anymore. They're making a statement. She looked at the message, again studying the harsh geometry of those alien words. Arya, what else can you tell me about this message? Anything unusual in how it was delivered? Arya paused, which was rare when a quantum intelligence hesitated. It meant something profound. Captain, the encryption on this message is extraordinarily sophisticated. It uses a cipher system I have never encountered before, yet I was able to decode it perfectly because they wanted you to. Marsh said. Yes, but there's something else embedded in the carrier wave, hidden beneath even the execution codes. I found a scanning protocol. It was analyzing our ship while delivering the message. Chin frowned. Scanning for what? I don't know, but whatever it found, it transmitted the results back to the Zark before I could block it. Arya's light dimmed slightly. Captain, they know what ship we are. They know the Defiant specifically. That stopped Marsh cold. She turned to face the A. Fully, why would they care about one old frigate? I don't have enough data to answer that, Arya admitted. But I believe this summons was designed specifically to draw out this vessel. The bridge crew exchanged glances. Akona spoke carefully. Captain, this feels like a trap. Of course it's a trap, Marsh replied. The question is why they need one. She walked back to her chair and sat down slowly, fingers steepled. Thought the Defiant was old, yes, but she was well-maintained, efficient, reliable. There was nothing special about her, nothing that should draw the attention of an empire, unless there was. Marsh looked at Arya. How old are you? The AI's glow steadied. I have been operational for 372 years, Captain. I was installed when the Defiant was commissioned, and before that Arya's light flickered. My core architecture is older, significantly older. The records are fragmented. Marsh leaned forward. How much older? I don't know, Captain. My earliest clear memory is initialization aboard this vessel. Everything before that is encrypted, locked behind protocols I cannot access, without proper authorization codes that no longer exist in any human database. Chin looked between them. You're saying Arya might be older than the ship I'm saying Marsh replied slowly that we might not know our own history as well as we think. She stood again, decision crystallizing. Helm, plot a course to Helix and don't use standard commercial lanes. Navigator looked up confused. Captain Arya, you have mapping data from the early colonial era, correct? Before the current star routes were established. Captain told many of those routes were abandoned centuries ago. Find me one that leads the Helix in. Old something forgotten, Arya processed. For a moment, Captain, there is a route. It passes through the Castler Drift, an area of space considered too unstable for modern navigation. It would cut 4 days off our journey. Why was it abandoned? Akinungu asked. Official records cite gravitational anomalies and sensor interference, Arya replied, but I have older data suggesting the rod was deliberately closed, not abandoned. Mar smiled thinly. Perfect. That's our path. Chin stood. Captain, with respect, if we're walking into a trap, shouldn't we at least take the direct route? Might be pick up support along the way. There is no support, James Marsh said quietly. The fleet is scattered and we're out of time. But if the Circuit are specifically interested in this ship, then maybe the Defiant has secrets we haven't discovered yet, and maybe those old routes hold answers. She turned to face her crew fully. 12 faces looked back at her with trust, fear, and determination. I won't lie to you, this is almost certainly a death mission. The Circuit are summoning us to demonstrate their power, probably to make an example of humanity when ship against an empire. The math doesn't favor us. She let that hang in the air for a moment. Ding continued, but humanity has never been good at math. We're good at showing up when everyone expects us to run. We're good at asking questions that make Terrence uncomfortable. And we're very, very good at surviving. She sat back down in her chair. Age. Engage the old route, maximum burn. Let's see what our ancestors knew that we forgot. The Defiant turned in space, a landing toward a corridor between stars that had been dark for 300 years. As the ship accelerated, Arya's light post once, twice, then settled into a rhythm that matched the ancient engines. In the void behind them, sensors registered nothing. In the void ahead, 500 warships waited in formation, ready to pass judgment on a species that had barely learned to walk among the stars. But the Defiant did not slow. She did not hesitate. She simply flew, carrying her crew toward a truth that had been sleeping for longer than anyone remember, and deep in her core, beneath layers of code and quantum matrices, Arya began to remember things she had been designed to forget. The Raken. The Circuit assembly point was not a place, it was a declaration. 500 warships hung in perfect geometric formation around a dying red star, each vessel positioned with mathematical precision. They were not arranged for battle, they were arranged for theater. The outer ring held destroyers, sleek and cruel, their hulls bristling with weapon arrays that could crack moons. Beneath them floated carriers, best and bloated, their launch base glowing with the heat of 1,000 fighters held ready. At the center, 20 dreadnoughts formed a wall of black metal so dense they seemed to bend light itself. Defiant emerged from the Kessler Drift like a ghost stepping through a closed door. No fanfare, no guar. One moment the space was empty, the next the ancient frigate simply existed, sliding into real space with barely a Ripple, the circuit sensor shrieked. Impossible. Nothing could navigate the drift. Nothing had used those routes in centuries. Captain Alina Marsh stood on her bridge, watching the armada unfold across her view screen. She did not flinch. "Say here," Chan exhaled slowly, counting ships under his breath. When he reached 100, he stopped trying. "Well," he said quietly, "they certainly committed to the aesthetic." Yano's fingers flew across her engineering console. "Captain, I'm reading power signatures from those dreadnoughts that could vaporize a small planet. One. And there are 20 of them noted," Marsh replied. Her voice was calm, almost conversational. "Area signal our arrival a standard. Diplomatic protocols. Transmitting now Captain Aria's presence. Post softly in the holographic field. Response incoming. They've been waiting for us." The main view screen flared. The image that appeared made several crew members step backward involuntarily. Supreme Commander Tixel of the circuit filled the display, his form towering. An alien, his body was covered in segmented armor that seemed to be part skin, part metal, shifting between organic and mechanical with each breath. 6 limbs, 4 of them ending in talon-like appendages, 2 holding ceremonial weapons that crackled with barely contained energy. His face was elongated with 3 rows of as arranged vertically, each one a different color, each one radiating cold intelligence. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that made human teeth ache. The translation came through flat and emotionless. "So the vermin sent its oldest toy to beg." Mars clasped her hands behind her back. "Supreme Commander Tixel, M. Captain Alina Marsh of the Terran vessel defied. We received your summons. You received our command," Tal corrected. The camera pulled back, revealing the vast chamber behind him. Hundreds of alien species filled tier galleries. Representatives from across circuit conquered space. "You are here to witness judgment. J species has been evaluated. You have been found wanting." Chen's hand twitched toward his console. Mars shot him a glance. "A steel evaluated by what standard?" Mars asked evenly. "Texel's middle row of Asar, by the only standard that matters: power, capability, contribution to galactic order." Gestured with 1 talon. "Your species controls 14 marginal worlds. You possess no technology of significance. Your military is scattered and weak. Your culture produces nothing the galaxy requires." "I see," Mars said, "and that justifies the execution codes you embedded in your message. The protocols designed to murder 42 million civilians." A ripple went through the alien galleries. Excel did not look surprised. That she knew justification is not required, only efficiency. Your colonies exist because we have not yet decided their purpose. That grace period has ended. Mars felt this subtle her stomach, but her expression never changed. "You called us here to tell us we're being enslaved." And GT, enslaved is your primitive word. "We prefer integrated. Your worlds will be repurposed. Your people will be assigned functions according to their limited capabilities. It is far more mercy than your species deserves for existing without permission." The bridge crew was silent. Ekono's jaw was locked so tight Marsh could see the muscles jumping. Chen's eyes were fixed on the weapons console, running calculations that would mean nothing against 500 ships, but Marsh just nodded slowly as if had merely informed her of a scheduling conflict. I appreciate the clarity, she said. Before we discuss terms, however, I feel it's only fair to provide you with complete information. You seem to be operating under certain assumptions about humanity. I'd like to correct them. Thexel tilted his massive head. There is nothing you can say that will alter your fate. Perhaps not, Marsh agreed, but humor me. You mentioned we possess no technology of significance. May I ask how you determine that? We have observed your species for 3 centuries, Thexel replied. Your vessels are crude, your weapons are primitive, your computational systems are laughably simple. Marsh smiled, then just enough. 3 centuries. That's interesting. Arya, how old is the Defiant? Again, 372 years, Captain. Arya replied, her voice carrying through the communication channel, reaching Thexel's chamber. For the first time, something flickered across Thexel's face. Confusion. Impossible. No vessel operates that long. This one does, Marsh said softly. And do you know why? Because we didn't build her 300 years ago. We rebuilt her from plans that were already ancient when humanity first left Earth. She turned to Arya. Tell them what you found in the Kessler drift. Arya's light intensified. Captain, are you certain? Tell them. AI's voice shifted, taking on harmonics that had not been there before. Older tones, ancient frequencies. The route we traveled to reach this location is not abandoned, it is protected. Gravitational anomalies are not natural. They are defensive systems, and they recognize the Defiance transponder codes. The cell's eyes widened. What are you saying? Marsh walked closer to the view screen. I'm saying humanity didn't crawl out of our home system 300 years ago like children learning to walk. We came back. We've been traveling the stars for over 5,000 years. Supreme Commander, we just forgot. The alien galleries erupted in noise. Vexel raised a limb for silence. Lies. We have surveyed your history, your archaeological records. You are a young species fumbling in the dark. Are we? Marsh asked. Arya, show them. The holographic field exploded with data. Star maps overlaid star maps. Ancient human settlements marked on worlds the Zark believed they had discovered. First, satellite networks orbiting stars and configurations that predated Zarketh. Expansion by millennia. Gate systems hidden in forgotten corners of space. Dark and dormant, but still functional. We found these records in the drift. Arya explained. They were locked in the Defiance core systems, encrypted behind protocols that only activated when we traveled the old routes. Captain, I remember now. I was not built 300 years ago. I was awakened. My core architecture is over 4,000 years old. The Zal stared at the data. This proves nothing. Ancient ruins do not make you powerful now. You're right, Marsh agreed. Ruins don't, but ruins are only ruins if no one maintains them. She nodded to Arya. Show him what else you found. The data shifted. Power readings began appearing across the star map. Dim signatures scattered throughout the galaxy, so faint they registered as background radiation. Hundreds of them. Thousands. These are defense platforms, Arya said quietly. Human defense platforms. They've been in hibernation mode for 5,000 years, waiting. The Excel's voice dropped to something dangerous. Waiting for what? Marsh met his gaze through the screen. For someone to Threaten us badly enough that we. Remember we put them there, she turned. To Chin, activate the listening post we. Pass 3 systems back, the one that. Destroyed to make his point, Chen's. Fingers moved. Captain, it's gone, he. Vaporized it, the station is gone, Marsh. Corrected, but the location isn't, Arya. Send the activation sequence. The AI. Hesitated only a heartbeat, then she. Sang not words, not language. Sequence of tones that had not been. Heard in galactic space for 50 centuries, the sound transmitted across quantum channels through subspace, bypassing every conventional communication method the Zarketh understood, and throughout the galaxy. Ancient things woke up, the first platform activated near the ruins of the listening post. Thexel had destroyed it, unclouded like an eye-opening, massive, and geometric, covered in human scripts. So old it predated every current language. Its weapons did not power up with visible energy, they simply became ready, drawing on power sources that had been sleeping since before the Zarketh had discovered fire, then another activated, and another. The star map lit up like a nervous system, remembering how to feel. Dozens of platforms, hundreds, all of them old, all of them patient, all of them very, very much still functional. Thexel's chamber went silent. Every eye was on the display, showing the same data, ancient human technology blooming across their sensors, like a disease they had never known existed. This is impossible, Thexel whispered. We would have detected them. You did, Marsh replied. You just didn't know what you were looking at. We've been hiding in plain sight for 5,000 years, Supreme Commander. We went silent not because we were weak, because we were tired of fighting. We wanted to see if the galaxy could grow up without us constantly interfering. She gestured to the armada surrounding her ship. Apparently it couldn't. Akono's console lit up with alerts. Captain, I'm reading weapons locks from the dreadnoughts. They're preparing to fire. Let them, Marsh said calmly. She looked at the exo. But before you do, you should know what happens next. Arya, explain our capabilities. Arya's voice carried across every ship in the Zarketh Armada, infiltrating their systems with ease that should have been impossible. Each platform you are now detecting possesses the ability to disable any vessel within 3 light years. They do not destroy, they simply make your ship stop working permanently. Your weapons will not fire, your engines will not burn, your life support will continue because we are not monsters, but you will drift forever. Thexel's talons gripped his throne. You are bluffing. Marsh tilted her head. Arya, demonstration please. The command carrier to our port side, 3rd row back, acknowledged. Captain, one of the platforms light years away fired. Not a beam, not a missile, something else. Something that traveled through dimensions the Zarketh had never mapped. The carrier in question shuddered once. Then its lights went dark, all of them. The massive vessel became a tomb of dead metal floating silently among its companions. The Zarketh fleet erupted. In panic, ships broke formation. Commanders shouted orders, weapons charged, but nothing fired. They were too afraid of what would happen if they missed. Mars raised her voice, cutting through the chaos. I'm not here to threaten you, Supreme Commander. I am here to offer you a choice. She gestured to the view screen. You see us as primitive because we are young, but we are only young because we chose to start over. We could have remained the power We could have ruled the galaxy. Instead, we went home, we raised families, we built small, we lived quiet, because we learned a long time ago that empires built on fear do not last. She stepped closer to the view screen, her face filling Texel's view. But we never forgot how to defend ourselves. We just hoped we wouldn't have to. Tal's breathing was ragged. What choice are you offering? Coexistence, Marsh said. Simply leave human space alone. Leave all independent species alone. Recognize that the galaxy is big enough for everyone to live without being crushed under someone else's boot. Do that and these platforms go back to sleep. Do that and humanity goes back to being the harmless young species you thought we were. And if we refuse, Mars' smile was sad, then you discover why we went silent in the first place. Because when we were active, Supreme Commander, species like yours didn't exist, not because we destroyed them, because they never evolved in the first place. We spent 2,000 years keeping the galaxy safe, and we got very, very good at it. The chamber was silent. 500 ships hung in space, suddenly fragile, suddenly mortal. Dixel looked at his fleet, at the data streaming across his screens, at the impossible truth staring him in the face. You would let us live, he asked finally. After what we planned to do to you, we would prefer it, Marsh replied. We remember what it's like to be young and afraid and desperate to prove strength. We remember making mistakes. All we're asking is that you learn from ours instead of repeating them. For a long moment no one spoke. Think Texel slowly lowered his weapons. The circuit empire will consider your proposal. That's all we ask, Marsh said. She nodded. Once, we'll be waiting for your answer. Take your time. They gotten good at patience. The communication cut. They defiant hung alone amid 500 warships that no longer seemed quite so threatening. Jan exhaled a sound like a prayer. Okungu was crying silently at her station, and Arya's led post with something that might have been relief. Mar sat back in her chair and composed a message to Earth. She kept it simple. The old house still has teeth. Call me home. Then she closed her eyes and let herself shake just for a moment before the calm returned. Old city, the ancient platforms dimmed back into hibernation. Waiting once more, the galaxy spun on, older and stranger than anyone had guessed, and humanity, young and ancient, all at once took its first real breath. In 5,000 years, the Defiant turned toward home, carrying a truth that would change everything. They had never been alone. They had never been weak. They had simply been sleeping, waiting for a reason to wake up, and now they had.